In this episode of Drawing and Dragons, we'll be doing something a little bit different. In this episode, we'll be adventuring to Viridimar, a homebrew region by Hatfiam3. So as you saw there, I'm going to be taking a fan-made map by Hatfiam3, as you can see on TV. He sent me a link to his map, he sent me like his pictures, and then he sent me some great descriptions, told me a little bit about the lore of each of the regions and the areas, told me more about the people there, and sort of some real-life analogs. And so using all of those together, I was able to make this map in Civilization 6. And this is a fully playable map. I tried my best to be loyal to what Hatfiam 3 had given me in the original inspiration, but he did say, you know, if you need to make changes to make this playable and usable, go ahead. And I did. So let's get right to it. So as you can see, my first step is making a plan. That's always step one. I take the 3 pictures that he sent to me, and they're at a little bit of different angles, a little bit of zoom, so I had to like kind of resize them a little bit. And then I mainly have to kind of overlap them, right? Make sure that they're all proportional and they're sort of tilted the right way. And so I'm able to sort of stitch them together by making one of the layers transparent. I lower its opacity, and I'm able to line the others up very well. And then I end up with this final image, the plan. And I have that on my side monitor as I began with step 2, which is to begin drawing the map. I start in the left corner because it's top left corner, because it's always easy than starting like the middle of the ocean. It's a lot harder to get your bearings and figure out exactly where your mouse is on the mini map and all of that. So I go through with a very, very big, the large brush. I'm just using grassland. I'm not using any other terrain yet, just grassland, because right now I'm focusing on the size of the landmass, not even really the shape. I want to get the very basic shape down first, but then you'll see I go later and I go through and actually get details, which is what I'm about to do right now. So I'm going through and making those etchy, sketchy sort of details, the more rough ridges and things around the borders of the countries, because in real life that's what it's like. It's not straight lines all over, right? It's very, very rough around the edges. And you do see I have to make a couple attempts, especially with Evergloam, the central island region there. It took me like 2 or 3 tries to actually get the size and the shape that I wanted. This part, though, this is the Fjorlands and the uncharted northern wastes. This part was my favorite to do. I actually really like this because of all the inland like seas and stretches of water going in, and then the little islands as well. This is the part that I was probably the most happy with because I feel like it just looks like coastline to me. And so I enjoyed that part probably the most out of all this. Now, step 3 is to paint the rest of the terrain. So we have grassland. We've got that. Don't worry. But now we need plains, desert, tundra, and snow. Those are the other terrain types in the game, and they're on the little terrain drop-down list. So I go through and I start off with plains just because it's a little bit easier, because it's basically like grassland, but a little bit different. And I'm trying to make sure that I'm sticking pretty loyal to Hatfiam 3's map, but I'm also considering how am I going to make this playable, because when I know from making maps myself, we tend to oversimplify things, right? To say, okay, this is the big desert region, this is the big plains region, this is the big grass region. But in reality, in real life, you know, those things blend and the lines are blurred, and there are some little patches of grassland in the plains and other things like that. And so I made sure to make some blending because I do want this map to be playable. And then now I'm going through and doing hills. And once again, I'm definitely taking some inspiration on my own here. I'm not just sticking with what the map was shown, because there are certain hilly regions. And I made sure to put a lot of hills, and the mountainous regions, lots of hills. But I made sure to not do too many mountains, because then the game becomes very difficult to navigate and play. And not too many hills in all of the regions, but I made sure to break up the flat land, because you don't want too much flat land, otherwise the game becomes very mundane. The hills allow for some cover for combat, and it also allows for a lot of good resources, like ores and iron and things like that. This is step 4 now. This is the feature, or yes, the features. And so I'm going through, I'm doing like forests, oases? Anyway, the features. There's a whole little tab. There's a ton of them, and this does include the natural wonders. I did the natural wonders off camera simply because I had to have the spreadsheet, like the sheet open that tells me what each of them is, what kind of tiles they belong on, what kind of benefits they instill, and so I had to make sure to spread those out. And so I did that part off camera. Now I'm doing rivers and then cliffs. Rivers, I've gotten a lot better at. I think this is the part that I have improved the most, is making sure I have enough rivers and they're very branching and overall well done. They start at high elevations, they go to low elevations, they avoid hills in general. I think I've gotten a lot better with the rivers. Now, this next part here you will see very shortly after I do the cliffs is I do the resources. And this time I decided to do the scatter resources. The game itself does a very good job of placing resources, but what I did do is I stepped away from the game, came back the next day actually, and I went through and I said, okay, do these resources make sense? Are they all in good places or not? And I did some other tweaking and fixing to the map. Now I'm doing the metadata. This is the name of the map, the name of the mods and all of that. And then now I'm adding the players. You need to do this. And I will have a video later on talking about how to do World Builder in general. But you need to make sure you add city states and add players manually. And then I'm doing the countries, the continents. And this is pretty fun to do as well. The only problem is you can't see both layers at once. I think this is something Firaxis is going to be working on in the future. But we now begin with our final product. And so we begin with the Taba Desert. Big, grand with this the summer oasis in it, the Gulf of Saskarvo, Riosk and the Sea of Grain, the Autumnal Hollow. And then finally we have the Elven Woods and the Thronimar Mountains with the Ukronaville Empire, the Orcish lands, the Carderock Highlands. I'm trying so hard. I'm trying to keep it going. Don't worry. And then we've got the Evergloam. That's a pretty easy one. I can do that one. And then with the Fjorland Archipelago. And then finally, up in the top right corner is the Uncharted Wastes, which I did not put a label for because they're Uncharted. Anyway, thank you very much for watching Drawing and Dragons. Submit your map if you want me to make it. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. That extremely annoying feeling when you want to play as the Ukronaville Empire, Rome is what Hatfiam 3 based on. And so you play Rome, but then you spawn in the in the frozen wasteland area and you have to fight your way up and defeat the Nords because you got to prove that you're better at this than them. That took like 3 hours. Holy cow. God darn.